down, like they're going live on the clock, and they get a countdown, it's like bam, old school.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not as rigid as that. Okay, I'm hoping that my let's see, my recording is actually taking place. I think it is. And we still could wait for a couple more people. Hey, Christina. So, John, what between you and Dan, you guys gonna talk about policy stuff?
I hope Dan will the document that Dan shared. Maybe we should push that out to the whole group. But that was the best.
Yeah.
Dan did the latest update from the ledge. I can talk a little bit about some regulatory activities.
Okay. And then I guess if people can drop their name and affiliation in the chat, that would be great. And let's see, I shall also put the agenda in the chat.
I just wanted to say good morning. Didn't get to my mute fast enough. Good morning, Bert.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I know you were busy. Yeah. Yeah, why don't we let me go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Broadband Hui. We are at 265, and this is the first one of March, and we will be doing the second one on the third Wednesday of the month. So just FYI, we always do it on the first and third of each month. And I want to welcome everybody uh, from across the state who are joining us in the Broadband Hui. And it's pretty pretty crazy how things have changed, how the world has changed, in this short period of time between the last time we met and now. So uh, never a dull moment. And I thought it'd be good to invite some folks that have some short little presentation, still talks about some of the things happening kind of in current events. Um, so with that, let's see who's waiting in the chat here. Oh, waiting in the waiting room. Anybody waiting in a waiting room? Okay, so what we'll do is let's go ahead and kick it off with a quick introduction. My name is Bert Lum. I'm in the state broadband office, and like I said, we've been convening the Broadband Hui for many weeks since March of 2020. And I want to also thank Chrissy for helping co-convene. Chrissy, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Aloha kako. I thought you were going to say like co-conspirator or something like that, like partner in crime. Depends on the topic. But yeah, aloha. I'm Chrissy. I work at Wine and Coast Comprehensive Health Center. I mahalo Bert for starting this really wonderful group back in when COVID days when we all needed each other. And I'll have to say I credit a lot of what Waianae has been able to do during that period, and then all of my contacts, my resources, my networks, my new friendships to the Hui. So mahalo Bert, and mahalo everyone for taking the time to join. It is important. My big thing now is number one, I actually miss boring government. I don't want it to be something new every day. I just want it to be boring. I want to go back to those days, but we're not there. And community is important. So this is our community here. so that we can take care of our, our communities that we live in, work in, and within each of our sectors. So mahalo again, Bert, for all you do and everyone joining.
Oh, thanks, Chrissy, and thanks to all of you who have been pretty regular stalwarts of the Broadband Hui and this journey that we're on. And like you say, Chrissy, I mean, the real benefit is the people that are on it, the network that we've created, the information that we're able to share, and hopefully, it's useful information that you can take back to your community and grow the knowledge base, the capacity. And the whole idea was, right, to build capacity. And I think we're continuing to do that, with whatever resources that we have at our fingertips. So thank you, everybody. Let's see, as far as new people that are on the call, I don't really actually see any new people. So I think we'll go ahead and start into our mana'o of the day. Let's see, where's my... So, maybe Chrissy, you can help me if I'm repeating myself, but given the fact that we live in some sort of tumultuous time, and never a week goes by where something wild and crazy happens, I really thought about what would be an appropriate mana'o of the day, and this one came up. Now, I thought that this one was something that is so important that it probably came up sometime before in our 265 convenings, but I don't know if I didn't find it listed anywhere. So I'm gonna share it, and hopefully this will be a first and something that everyone can sort of take to heart. So I got introduced to this saying through Pono Shim, and Pono Shim was key leader in Hawaii. He ran the Oahu Economic Development Board and was quite influential. And one of the things that he brought to my attention, as well as others have brought Pilahi Paki to my attention, and they, she has a number of very strong influences in the state, and I think she was very influential in the passing of the Aloha bill that was made into statute, and I think it's HRS 5-5-7.5. Anyways, one of the things that she says, and she's noted for, is that she said in a public kind of convening that one day the world will look to Hawaii when they search for world peace, because Hawaii has a key, and that key is aloha. And I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention as our kind of mana'o of the day, because with all the things that are happening in the world, I really strongly believe that this is becoming more and more and more relevant. And so I think the work that we do, all the things that you folks do in your communities, is grounded in aloha, and it starts in Hawaii. I'm so thankful for being in Hawaii, and I think that the work that we do is not only beneficial to Hawaii, but has the opportunity to spread across the world in the hopes that it helps to achieve world peace. So that's my mana'o of the day. I even if it's a repeat, I think it's valuable that we continue to draw attention to it and repeat it as much as possible. And for me, at least, try to live day to day by this mana'o and understanding. So there will be more of this, but I wanted to share this because of the important time that we all live in. So that's my mana'o of the day. Thanks, everybody. And Chrissy, you want to add anything to that?
Even if this was a repeat, I think it's super relevant right now, and it's always relevant. I mean, aloha is something that we know as a feeling, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us to continue to live that, regardless of how frustrated we get, or all those negative emotions, that it's really built into our culture, our communities, and whether you're born or raised here, I mean, you come here and you feel it. And so I think it is our responsibility to make sure that we share that with everyone, regardless of, our political affiliations, or, the each of us are going to be different in the way that we approach things, but so powerful. I mean, I really feel like that's the only word, the only feeling that's known globally. I mean, I was in Paris one day, couldn't communicate with an older woman trying to do something with my face. And I think eventually I kind of felt like she was wondering where I was from or who am I. All I said was aloha. And she went, oh, so I was like, okay, it's universal.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
Good reminder.
I'm gonna
mahalo for that.
I'm gonna drop a reel, an Instagram reel, in the chat, and this was done by Brandon Maka'avaava from the nation of Hawaii, and he does a really good articulation of what aloha means, and draws a direct relationship to the Aina as a result of working the lo'i. So if you get a chance, check out the Instagram reel, and it's just a short, like 2-minute from Brandon Maka'avaava. Okay, with that, I do want to proceed with our agenda, and I wanted to also, I was thinking how things have changed, just in the short time of the last Broadband Hui call, and I was thinking, it's to some extent it's business as usual, but to some extent it's more than that. And I wanted to invite Jimmy Collins, who is part of our state, and Jimmy, I want to give you the chance to explain exactly the department you're in, because sometimes I say HAIMA, sometimes I say state DOD, but I'll give you the chance to officially tell us the department that you're in, and the work that you do with critical infrastructure. And again, this is and just to preface, I kind of sprung this on Jimmy, and I think she wanted to probably have more time to talk about it, but and we'll probably have her back later on. But I wanted to give her a quick chance to talk a little bit about how she views, from a state perspective, critical infrastructure, and the broadband work that we do is definitely part of that.
Well, thanks, Bert, for having me on. I do appreciate it. It was great to hear your voice. We don't speak often enough. So I'm with the Hawaii State Office of Homeland Security, and we currently now reside under the new Department of Law Enforcement. We were under the State Department of Defense previously, and we have been confused for HAIMA, mainly because of that affiliation with the state DOD. They were our sister organization. And they are often thought of in response to all kinds of things. And for us, our mission is really looking at threats to the state. So whether it's cybersecurity or physical kinds of threats, terrorism, thankfully, knock on wood, haven't had too much experience locally with that. But yeah, we are squarely focused on threats to the state. And one of the big threat vectors, if you will, right now in the world is critical infrastructure. And I'm sure you see it in headlines across the world, activities where critical infrastructure is being targeted by any kinds of means. You see it probably most glaringly in the war with Ukraine. Energy infrastructure is constantly under attack, and it gets broader than that. And now, unfortunately, with another war unleashed in the Middle East, something that we're looking at quite specifically on where threats might emanate from that conflict that's currently underway. And I think maybe timely is to talk just a little bit about that in particular. I know when the Ukraine war kicked off, I think roughly about 4 years ago, right? There was a big hubbub about what that might look like in other places across the world. And we thought really hard about what those impacts might be to Hawaii. nonetheless, with the current situation in Iran, it is expansive and looks to be expanding even more. And I would say particularly with cyber threats, but not exclusively. There's quite a few briefings going on and some products that I'll drop links to in the chat as I finish up. But I did want to highlight a few things. And I don't know how closely anybody follows these kinds of events if you're not really from a security perspective. So I just wanted to do just a quick overview of where we're kind of at with that. It's pretty fresh still, about 4 days or so into the conflict. We've also got some observed threat activity that I wanted to share with you and things that we're looking for should they happen. And then mostly I want to make sure I spend enough time on recommendations that organizations in particular and leadership in organizations can do. So if you haven't been following, the U.S. and Iran have been through decades of hostility, differentiating temperatures, starting back from the 1950s. Since the 79 revolution in Iran, the hostilities have been relatively warm to hot, depending on the time frame. There's been internal conflict, most recently in Iran. It's made headlines with varying numbers of protesters killed from massive protests that have gone on in the country. And there's been some headline news around our government's response to that, at least a rhetorical response. And most recently, increasing tensions back in June of last year. There was a brief, I think they're calling it the 12-day war, where Iran started with attacks on nuclear facilities, and the U.S. came in and supported that with some unique capabilities. But most recently, we've been going through a review and a renegotiation with Iran on nuclear talks starting just last month. And so most recently, current activity, the war kind of kicked off back on the 28th of February, this past weekend, with some strikes both by Israel and the U.S. We've been with the Israelis targeting Iranian military and nuclear sites, and looking at expanding into Iran proxies. So Hezbollah in Lebanon, you've heard about, hopefully, you've seen the headlines where Israel is not just attacking, but looking at going in on land to push back Hezbollah's ability to attack Israel. And then the Iranian response to all of that, initially localized for Israel, but now definitely engulfing across the Middle East with not just U.S. targets, but targets on critical infrastructure and civilian activities in a multitude of countries. Bahrain, UAE, Cyprus has been impacted. So both ours and Israeli leadership have voiced that they're ready to continue this for weeks on end. We do look like it does look like that the primary physical impacts are likely to remain in region, although terrorists spinning off of this conflict is not an unknown phenomena. We do think, and we're seeing initial secondary and third order effects globally with disruption in shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's most recently this morning. There's been conversations about that and the potentiality of the U.S. doing escorts of ships moving through that location for security purposes. The European allies have issued a joint statement urging peace, obviously condemning Iran's indiscriminate attacks. But there could be increased involvement from the Europeans, depending and to impacts to U.S. internet infrastructure based on what we're already seeing rolling through. We do think that it's going to be more low-level cyber activity in the near term rather than widespread cyber activity. And I'll mention a couple of those. One thing I did want to highlight. There was an advisory, cybersecurity-wise, it was a joint fact sheet that was issued from DHS, FBI, and the National Security Agency, and I'll drop a copy of that in for you guys to take a look at. It's about a year old or so, but the contents of it are very relevant to what we're seeing right now. So it's good to have that on hand for background, particularly if you have any involvement in cybersecurity, not just the broadband infrastructure, but the cybersecurity that supports it. So looking forward on cyber threats, the Iranian, excuse me, state-sponsored cyber actors are likely prioritizing regional targets, while I don't know if you've heard the term hacktivists. So folks that lean into those philosophies, but not necessarily state-sponsored, operating under either Iran guidance or autonomously, look at targeting U.S. and allies domestically. For physical threats, we're looking at ideologically motivated domestic threat actors or lone offenders, impacts of kinetic attacks on upstream service providers being the most likely physical threat impacts. In the world we live in, information operations is a thing. Think mis, dis, and malinformation. You've probably heard that term. And we think it's highly likely Russian state-sponsored information operations are going to take advantage of the conflict to inflame tensions around our actions, the U.S. actions, including through AI-generated content, which is becoming more and more a phenomenon. For strategic risks, the most likely risks we think are disruptions to service availability. So cyber effects or secondary impacts from bombing, for example. Increasing energy costs, supply chain delays, and obviously market volatility. We've seen that from the start of the conflict, even to this morning with the markets being impacted. So I think what I want to leave you with is, aside from just understanding kind of where we're at in all of this, is some recommendations that we're trying to publicize and promote out in the communities. So for cyber, it's focusing on monitoring and patching of your high impact environments. That's critical infrastructure as well as cloud, which is becoming more and more ubiquitous, and prioritizing public facing services, particularly say for our government colleagues. Implementing rate limiting, traffic filtering on public facing services. Deploying firewalls and leveraging content delivery network services to mitigate any potential denial of service or DDoS attacks, and validating import before sending to the database. So physical, looking at sanitizing online information, for example, deleting inactive social media or opting out of data brokers. Ensuring you have clear protocols, particularly for response. So multiple lines of communication with local law enforcement in particular. Ensuring backups are operational and disaster recovery sites are prepped just in case. And then when it comes to kind of countering information operations, think about and write up pre-draft approved messaging for any misleading narratives that might impact your organization associated with the foreign adversary kind of information operations. And really, anybody's a target of that. So it's hard to say that is solely the purview of the government anymore, whether federal, state, or local. There's a lot of organizations, private and public, that have had information operation issues being targeted with mis, dis, and malinformation. So overall, it's really kind of heighten your sense of security awareness is the big message. Look at maybe upstream providers. I think you may have heard about the Amazon data centers that were hit in the Middle East. So knowing what your connectivity is to data centers like that, if that applies, is going to be especially important. Knowing how you're being routed through those kinds of data centers. I think that's probably a pretty good thing to review if you're not familiar with it already. And then bottom line, coordinating now with our State Fusion Center, your Servicing Information Sharing and Analysis Center, if you're familiar with the ISAC construct, and any relevant federal government representatives. So open up those communication channels. So should you need support or should you need to report some kind of incident, you can reach out and activate our organizations in that network to help support you. So yeah, I mean, other than opening it up for questions, hopefully I hit on what you were aiming for, Bert. But I'm absolutely more than happy to dive into details when you have more agenda time on anything specific that folks want to hear about.
No, that's great. That's great. I really appreciate, Jimmy, this kind of short notice and very comprehensive overview. So I really appreciate that. Dan, I see your hand up.
Well, in terms of the legislature, the bills to establish what criminal property damage to critical infrastructure, adding in broadband and cable networks. So both of those bills are alive in the legislature.
Yeah, and we've definitely been tracking that. And hopefully they make that as broad as we think of for critical infrastructure. I mean, there's we track 16 sectors that the federal government has identified, and it's a pretty robust taxonomy that allows us to think in those terms. So yeah, we've been watching those progress too.
And Jimmy, the members of the Broadband Hui are definitely interested in this topic of cybersecurity as well as I'll talk a little bit about AI safety. We kind of typically look at the sort of the entry level understanding of this topic, and of course you've brought to our attention the vast sort of complications that could easily inundate people's understanding.
Right.
As you get more into the various kind of threat actors that are out there. So I think in all of our work that we conduct, whether it's cybersecurity, cyber sort of readiness for, let's say, Kupuna and others, it's really important to think about the depth of this particular topic that could impact on a very severe level, I guess, when you have sort of major threat actors that are coming that are state actors that are coming in and looking at disrupting infrastructure. So
Yeah.
Like I said, we kind of touch it on a very sort of person to person level to bring people into an understanding of what's going on. But there's a lot deeper kind of activity that is taking place, and so Jimmy, what I'll do is as we progress over the next couple of weeks, I do want to get back to you and maybe on a particular topic, have you go into a little bit more depth, especially in terms of what we do with talking to our communities. We sort of are trying to help close the digital divide, stay focused on things like digital equity and digital skills uplifting, so that people are capable of understanding what the technology is and how to safely kind of navigate it. So I know you're at the kind of the high end of some of this activity, and what we want to do is any resources, lessons learned that we can bring back to our communities would be super beneficial.
No, absolutely. And while we work with critical infrastructure, I certainly understand the importance of getting individual cybersecurity safety information out there. We've been working with, to the extent that we can, bunches of different nonprofits that are doing a much more active role. So happy to address either side of it. It matters as much that the individual is safe and secure as the critical infrastructure. But we recognize that there's also some players out there that are tackling the individual level, and look forward to any way that we can collaborate to elevate that conversation as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jimmy. And
Absolutely.
like I said, I'll reach out back to you, and then maybe we can have you back on sometime, maybe in the April timeframe.
Happy to. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jimmy. Now,
Hello, Jimmy.
what I do want to kind of move into is just a teaser, because we'll do a little bit more detail dive into what is coming up. But I did want to provide this teaser so that you can start kind of putting it on your calendar. So a bunch of us who are on this call have been working on something called AI Safety Awareness Week. And this is going to take place coming up at the end of April. So, we still have a good, month and a half to go to actually get there. But, there have been quite a bit of meetings, and we've been pretty much meeting once and twice a week to pull this together. And what we have on tap is the folks from the AI Safety Awareness Project are actually coming in to Hawaii, and we are going to be doing a week-long set of activities that will start on Oahu. It'll go to the Big Island, Maui, Kauai, and then return to Oahu on May 1st. So this is kind of like the agenda that we've laid out and agreed upon, and we're sort of nailing down some of the details. What I will do is invite some of the key representatives from the AI Safety Awareness team to come on and maybe talk a little bit more about the details, so that we can start getting the word out to your respective communities. So I just wanted to give you that teaser. Mark your calendar and be attentive to what is upcoming. So that's the week-long Hawaii statewide AI safety week that we've kind of put together. Okay, so with that, and believe me, I will be bringing this up again for the next several weeks so that it stays top of mind. The next thing I wanted to do is give a friend of mine a chance to talk a little bit about an AI topic that is also on the news and has perhaps some relevance to not only this AI safety week, but it probably has some direct relevance to all of your involvement with the various choices that we now have with AI platforms to use. And I wanted to give Chad a chance to talk a little bit about what was in the news recently about Anthropic and the use of Claude by the Pentagon. So with that, Chad, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks, Bert. Thanks for having me on. So
And Chad, sorry, what I want to give you a chance to do is do a quick introduction of your role in AI in the community. And I know Chad from a mutual friend of ours, Ian Kitajima, and Chad has a company called Second Wave, and they've been doing a lot of AI kind of development. So that's kind of my perspective of Chad's role in this AI ecosystem. And Chad, you can add to that brief introduction.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So as Bert mentioned, I'm president, co-founder of Second Wave Technologies. And we have a couple of AI products that we've been developing. And one of them actually got picked up for as part of a Small Business Innovative Research Grant through the DoD to help, see how it can be leveraged within that department. And so, as Bert had mentioned, the news from Anthropic about Anthropic and how they're designated as a supply chain risk, and how they came to odds of how their product, right, how their models and their AI should be used within the department was really interesting. I mean, there's the whole the whole AI scene. I guess it has kind of been like somewhat of a reality show for the last couple of years. And you look at OpenAI and this even commercials, right? There's this like it's like a Coke and Pepsi thing almost with the Super Bowl commercials and everything else. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, what it turned out to be is, well, the basis of the whole conflict is that the Department of War wanted, and this is as much as I could gather at the level I could get to, right? The Department of War wanted to use Anthropic's AI models for particular functions such as, well, they wanted to use it for anything they wanted to use it for, right? But Anthropic was against it being used for mass surveillance, for being used for fully autonomous drones, or like lethal type of autonomous agents. And they kind of push back on saying, you guys can use us, and they have been used. So Anthropic is actually, their model Claude is actually the foundational, I believe it's the foundational model for the Palantir product, right? So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Palantir, but they're like they have this big, data information gathering and uh, fusion type of system, and they have they're used a lot by the Department of War right now, in a lot of the operations that being conducted. So it's kind of interesting, especially with the timing, right, with the current uh, war going on and everything, and for the Department of War to really try to cut ties with Anthropic. And it was really interesting that OpenAI swooped in as fast as they did, where they ended up picking up the contract with the department. Um, but yeah, Bert, did you want me to do you get into a particular aspect of the whole thing? Oh, sorry, Bert, you're still on mute.
Yeah, anything that you feel important to share. The context, I think, upon which the Broadband Hui, and I'll open up for questions that you guys might want to pose to Chad. You know, AI obviously needs the internet to provide sort of like the means by which any of this information and communication gets transmitted. And this application of AI is kind of top of mind, especially since we're coming up with this AI Safety Week, and so it's really important as we talk about how people start to get familiar with these platforms. And I guess, Chad,
Yeah.
based on what has been perhaps a line in the sand for Anthropic, I mean, what does that tell you about choices that are currently being made by the public on the use of any of these platforms? It's obviously pretty indicative, and I kind of gather that a lot of folks have been moving off of ChatGPT and going to Claude. But then on the other hand, I hear people saying, "Oh, Claude isn't as good as OpenAI." So, I mean, what's your take of not only the line that was drawn and their sort of philosophical standing on their beliefs, but also what does that mean for the general user?
Yeah, no, that's a good topic to explore. So part of our research, we're using AI to fuse information from different sources, right? That's kind of like the foundational piece of what we're doing. And one of our real drivers of how we were doing that, right, is to make sure that the information can tie back to the source of the data. Because AI, when you're using it a lot, one of the big things that from the start that the criticisms were hallucinations, right? That this AI system is making this up. I mean, and that's kind of part of the technology itself, right? It tries to guess, and it tries to almost mimic what, or produce what you would want to hear, right? What you're asking for, it wants to give it to you. Now that causes a lot of can cause a lot of problems. And OpenAI and Anthropic and Google have been doing a lot of work to reduce those hallucinations, to make it more reliable. But when you hear, I think what's interesting is when you hear a lot about AI safety, or guardrails being put in, or the red teaming, and they trying to make the model safe before they release it. It makes me think about, well, what are they trying to make it safe for? Like, what's actually happening that they're saying, hey, we have to actually put these guardrails in, because they probably see what it's like without the guardrails, right? They're probably seeing why AI safety is important. So I think the line that was drawn by Anthropic, it is kind of an important line. It's this one of those engineer, and I've been an engineer like most of my whole life. It's an engineer and executive level saying this is what we want, and the engineer is going, well, that might cause issues, right? So it's one of those conflicts, except for like it's just really huge level, and the challenge now with AI is that its capability just keeps increasing, and you can see that it can do so much. And I think when people start seeing that, wow, this technology can do so much, it lends itself to, well, we should try it for this, and we should try it for this. But some of the problems is that it there's a lot of the AI is somewhat of a black box, right? You're asking for it, you're sending requests in, and it's getting responses out. So in terms of like autonomous systems, right, the the amount of fully autonomous systems, there's a lot of maybe unknowns that can come into that, right? Or even when you're fusing together data and from mass amounts of things, like it's not just the capability, right? But it's also like, is that really something we should be doing? Because there's a lot of things you can do with AI, but there's a lot of things you shouldn't be doing with AI. And then like as you've seen with video models, image models, voice models, you're able to, you know, fake or mimic other people, and steal their identities, and there's all kinds of, I think, a lot of ethical issues that are going to come up as the technology increases. It's the danger of it being used in the wrong way is becomes a lot higher.
No, that's a great way to kind of articulate what it is that the challenge that is being presented to all of us. I guess the interesting thing is that we typically don't see as deeply as you might see it as a engineer, as a programmer, who has a company that's working directly in this. So I think it's a really good perspective to take, and I do not only appreciate, Chad, your insight, but I do encourage any of the participants on the Hui call to, if you have a question for Chad, please feel free to ask. And it is an indication, just like talking to Jimmy, there's a lot deeper there's a lot deeper rabbit hole that you can go down on any of these topics. We're touching the surface of it, right? Whether it's cybersecurity or AI safety, and we think, oh, our audience is kupuna, but when it starts to really influence the capability of things like autonomous killing drones or mass public surveillance, that's still within our wheelhouse, and we collectively need to be aware of that. So anyway, Chad, mahalo for that. Any questions? Any questions for Chad?
Hi, this is Chrissy. I do. Chad, I'm curious. There's different types of thinking when it comes to AI. That it's something that you'll have kind of a hype phase. It's even been compared to Industrial Revolution, compared to internet access. I don't know. I just think it's really a different animal, because it can be supportive, but the cognitive ability, the context that it provides with large data sets, it can, and do it within seconds. how do you see, and it touches every industry. I mean, I'm in healthcare, but it's in every industry and in all of our communication technologies. I'm just curious what your thought is. Do you see it as a workforce threat? I mean, that's kind of one of the high things. It's going to take over my job. Or do you see it? I see it as a leveraging it to be a supportive tool. And maybe this is just healthcare because we know AI isn't going to take over a provider, a doctor's job, or an MA's job. Or something that's just going to really just completely reshape all roles that we really need to focus on and have as a high priority.
Okay, yeah. I really think that it's gonna reshape the way we work and the way a lot of the way we live. As far as like how it takes away jobs, I think it really augments the jobs that the people are going to be doing. And I think that, and I do liken it to like it's like kind of like the internet where it really transformed the way we communicate, the way that we consume information, the way that we can provide information. So, but the internet, to me, it took like at least 10 years for things to feel like, hey, this is solid, and we're gonna build a lot of things on here. AI, the AI that we're used to and what we've seen, the modern, I guess, AI. I mean, that's been around since the end of 2022, so essentially 2023, which is like 3 years. And if you see how much it's changed things in 3 years, it's kind of amazing. So and I'm gonna show my age a little bit. So when I started programming initially, it was maybe in the early 2000s, and we were using, and I was using a book to look up references like of libraries and things like that when I was coding in C++ and things like that. So reference books. And then the internet kind of started to get popular. There's a lot of ways you can get data from that, right? But that was the course of, let's say, I don't know, 10, 15 years, right? Or maybe more. The way that people write software, the way that people code has dramatically changed in the last year, or year and a half. I would say that the way that the majority of developers write code now is dramatically different than it is a year and a half. And that's crazy, right? When you think about, so it augments the work that I do, and other developers, by shifting it to be more on planning, spec development, requirements development, testing, and things like that. So it it's amazing how quickly, right, that things change. And I don't think that's, I mean, we feel it first at the tech level, but I believe that that's gonna translate to so many other industries and domains.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, now that you say that, I'm definitely not a coder by trade, but I've had to learn SQL to based on the database we use for EHR. And you're right. I mean, a year and a half ago, I would be stuck on something and have to try to find get actual human resource to help me with how to get past a certain part of my SQL that I just couldn't figure out. Now I just put it into chat, and I'm like a genius. So yeah, so I've seen it. I think probably one of the things that that most folks are saying, and which I believe in, is that we need to at least train our workforce. I'm going to say, I can only speak for healthcare industry, train our workforce to learn how to use AI to help support their roles. And if we don't, then we're not doing our due diligence in our own industry to make sure that people can succeed and move forward with AI, a technology that, you're right, is, I think that's the big difference, right? Exponentially moving forward compared to other things like the internet, where it seemed like a kind of a slower evolution. I mean, almost daily there's something. I mean, it's learning instantaneously from all of us that are contributing to the process. But yeah, mahalo for that, Chad. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Chad. I see Sean's hand up, and Sean, I wanted to segue into the policy. So you wanna quickly ask your question, and then you and Dan can segue into policy.
Sure. First of all, just that was awesome intelligence that Chad added to the group discussion about AI, and I want to express my gratitude for that. And I hope it's an ongoing. I think that week of trainings will be a great opportunity to capture more of that learning and also format it in ways that are meaningful to people. My real quick comment is, isn't it fascinating that such a huge policy discussion is occurring because a company decided not to abide by a government contract request and gave up a whole bunch of public money for the privilege of taking a position. So we're in a fascinating realm where, and I know Dan will have some updates for us on where is AI in terms of public policy obviously at the federal level, it's into the highest bidder, right? So OpenAI is at the table, so they get the contract and they can do whatever the government wants them to do. In Hawaii, there will be state laws that may govern that differently, and there are compelling reasons for us to pay attention to that. My real quick thought was it reminded me of some learnings that we had from surveillance self-defense efforts, Electronic Frontier Foundation work, and looking at police agencies' adoption of technology like license plate readers, facial recognition, all those sorts of things. And I think the bottom line really is, what is the transparency? I mean, and so you look at best practice, you go, is there transparency? Do we even know what policies are being implemented? And then the second part of that is, what's the accountability, for when the lines do get crossed or when things are happening that the public does not support, what are our mechanisms for accountability? So I think the same thing applies in the AI realm, right? At a high level, it's about transparency and accountability, really. How are we going to keep these things working in the public interest and protect consumers and humans in the long run?
Yeah, the transparency part is really interesting. And it's really hard in my opinion, to still not full transparency. Like I was trying to go down a rabbit hole the last night about like, well, what are all these red teaming and these safety guidelines, and they're putting these guardrails, like why, right? What are you getting protected from? Like what is, and sometimes, I'd really want to know, because that shows the full dangers of what could happen, but it's not fully transparent from the companies themselves, which is interesting.
So Bert, do you want me to go ahead and invite Dan to give us an update on the the 6 bills that are
Sure,
still alive at
sure.
the ledge?
And Dan, keep in mind we only have 5 minutes, so wanna keep it relatively quick.
Well, yeah, thank you. No, not too much is alive. Well, I mentioned the damaging broadband equipment becoming that's likely to pass. Making a Class C felony to damage broadband equipment. Now, in terms of AI, there is a decision making today on SB 3001. Um, and I haven't really looked at it, but it creates penalties for deceptive practices by AI. So that one will actually carry over from 2025, but it appears to be alive now. So it's past LBT, and now it's in JDC today at 9:40. We missed the public decision making. Maybe it's come out. Maybe it's come out already. And then okay, we talked about infrastructure, artificial. So that's the one that's alive on AI. There may be some others. So good to help us alert each other. Okay, another bill on if there's revenue from social media going into a digital equity fund. let's see, 3, 4, scheduled to be heard by Finn today. Um, making if you're making a streaming program in Hawaii, you could get credit, same join the same program as a film production. And that's about it. Oh, okay.
You
Prohibits
know,
sale of geolocation information without consent. So that uh, recommended by CPN, past second reading. So that one's alive. SB 1163. So that's about it.
So, so Dan, if you don't mind,
yeah,
I'll just
between
add for folks who don't engage with the legislature that the process, bills just basically die for either lack of hearing or because they get held by committee. So the long list gets shorter and shorter as the session goes by. I think we're in a close to a last crossover. Maybe bills have to be at the money committees before they cross between the House to the Senate and vice versa. I know that.
and Sean, did you want to have any questions for Chung?
Well, I was just going to ask Chung if he had any updates because I know that the broadband office may have other bills that they're tracking or inputs, but I didn't want to put you on the spot, Chung, just an opening there.
No, no, thanks for that question. I think I've mentioned last we call that our priority is tracking bills that are going to impact our office and the federal monies that are coming into the state. So those are our priorities. And will be addressed, directly with introducers, supporters, and the committee chairs. We are tracking some other things like AI bills, just because we're starting to be involved in that environment, but nothing really directly. We're not testifying, but we're tracking, and if questions come up, we do try to address them. But we are tracking the budget bill because we have a small ask for our office. And so a lot of things are happening behind the scenes, in regards to that. Yeah, if your bill has not been heard by now by the last committee, it's probably gonna die. They're in the home stretch for the first decade. So all of the bills have to cross over. And yeah, if they haven't been heard, it's probably gonna die.
So Chung, the last thing that happens is resolutions. So we're still in the window where resolutions can be offered and considered,
Yeah,
or
the
no?
resos have a different timeline, so it could be a little bit later.
Mhm.
But resos are resos, right? It doesn't carry a whole lot of weight, other than, when it gives more work to a certain agencies and departments. But you can't appropriate monies with the resos. So yeah, so it's like a request, if you will, from the legislature, because you couldn't pass a bill, but sometimes they are problematic because there are funds that are needed to do certain things. Like, let's say a reso asks a department to do a study, yeah, you need funds to do stuff like that, and so it could be problematic. And but yeah, so we anticipate some resos coming.
And Bert, just for my
Thanks.
part, to wrap up the policy piece, I just say, in addition to resos, there will be maybe some governor message appointments that might be of interest to some folks on the call. I don't know if the PUC chair hearing, I know there was an appointment made. I don't know if that hearing has occurred. But for example, that folks on this call might be interested in. The last thing, and one example is the counties have adopted a resolution asking the state to look at the transfer of ownership of Charter and Cox. There's a merger going, a very large merger going on now, and I'll share a quick link at the end here. But Charter will become the largest ISP in the nation by this merger, But the state still could require things. State of California, for example, put major public interest obligations and consumer protections in place as part of the transfer. It doesn't look like Hawaii is going to do that. And the window is closing pretty soon. So anyway, that's an interesting activity, Charter's acquisition of Cox and the merger and change of their ownership. So
well, thanks, Sean. Thanks,
Okay.
Sean. And that kind of brings to the end our 265th convening of the Broadband Hui. We appreciate everybody's ability to join us, and we'll be back on the third Wednesday of March, which is the 11th? No, the 18th. So if you have any questions, if you have any topics, if you have any suggestions, feel free to email me, and I will get them on the agenda. But in the meantime, until we see you next, you all stay safe and you all stay awesome. Aloha, aloha, everybody.
Aloha, ohuiho.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.